And now on Nights with Steve Price, the Courses and Careers Show with Danny Bielik. Thanks to Management Consultancy International. Go to mci.edu.au.
20 after 9 now. While we always miss Danny Bielik, it is always a great pleasure when his interchange arrives in the studio, Denise Meyerson. Evening to you.
Thank you, Steve.
We all love having you here with your very happy, smiley voice. And you've got with you a guest, Jacqui Jones, who's the Chief Executive of the Australian Business and Community Network. Very nice to have you with us. Just move into your microphone there, Jacqui.
Thanks.
So what is the Australian Business and Community Network?
Well, we're a not-for-profit and we run mentoring programs where we match disadvantaged schools and students with large corporates. We work with 33 companies in Australia. So, you know, very well-known companies like Commonwealth Bank and American Express and PwC, and local companies as well. So, and MCI is one of our wonderful members and provides us with mentors for the students that we work with.
So mentor is a word there that you throw in that has raised its head on this program a couple of times before.
It has indeed.
And I indeed said that in one interview that I really have never had or didn't have a mentor. Now, when you think back over that, back when I started work, which was in the olden days. I know I don't look that old, but in the olden days,
Yes.
I guess that person was called your superior, or a superior who was your sponsor, who sponsored you in your job.
That's right.
So that's what mentoring is. Someone who's more experienced than you, who recognises talents in you that they themselves have got and they want to pass on their experience, isn't it?
That's exactly right. And they provide you with guidance and support and encouragement. That's really what the role a mentor plays in your life. So you can call them a sponsor, you can call them a mentor. It doesn't really matter as long as they play that role in you. And
in your experience, most often, do they find you or you find them?
Oh, that's such a vexed question, isn't it? I think it's both, actually. I think that it's really great to seek out mentors because often if you're thinking about a particular time in your career or in your life and you need help with something, that's a great time to look for a mentor to help with that particular issue at the time. But I think also mentors do arrive in your life. You know, you see someone who you think is fantastic and inspiring, you meet someone fabulous, and often that's a time when you think, oh, I'd like to spend more time with you, I'd like to get your advice, I'd like to hear your thoughts on something. And so they can arrive in your life just as much as you looking for them.
I was covering a particularly gruesome murder case in South Australia when I was working in newspapers back in the late 1970s. And it was such a big case that all of the fancy pants reporters from Melbourne and Sydney arrived in little old Adelaide. We were considered a hick country town. And I was introduced to one of these guys he arrived at the scene of the crime. And this was quite appropriate. It might sound inappropriate. It wasn't. There's a big police presence there, a lot of police working very hard trying to solve this crime. He's turned up in a rented car, and in the rented car, in the boot, are 2 eskies full of cold beer. Now, this is the 1970s, let me remind you. And so he started handing out cold beer to the senior police, and suddenly he started getting all of the breaks on all of the stories, and the rest of us were frozen out.
Yes. That man's a genius.
I thought, this guy's clever. Gee, that's smart. So I decided I better introduce myself to this bloke, and I started hanging out with him. When he went back to the Big Smoke and I was left there to clean up the story, he rang and actually hired me to be his man on the ground in Adelaide to tip him off on anything that would happen. He would then write it under his own name. I thought, that's a bit cheeky.
Yeah.
But 6 months later, what happens? I get a job offer from his newspaper to go and work with him.
Yeah.
So is that a mentor or is that just me being clever finding a contact?
I think that's a bit of both. I don't like to really limit the definition of mentoring. I mean, you have formal mentoring where you are nominated as a mentor or a mentee and you are matched. But then the informal mentoring is like the story you just told, the people that you come across that provide you with some kind of support, and that he definitely got a break for you. He provided you with support and encouragement. Exactly. So he played that role in your life, and that's just as important as the formal relationship you have with anyone. And does mentoring necessarily have to mean friendship? Not at all. Because I think that... It helps though, doesn't it?
In part, I think it does help. It depends on the nature of the relationship, and certainly what we're seeing sometimes with some of the school kids is that the students are afraid to step up and ask someone formally, could you please play the role of my mentor? And if we want them to step out of school as well-rounded and ready to step into employment opportunities and grab their future with both hands, the mentor could just play that particular person role and give them that extra push.
So a mentor gives someone confidence.
Hopefully, yes.
That's
their role.
They give them
yes.
The benefit of their experience,
yes.
but they give them the confidence to improve and get better and to strive harder.
Yeah, that's right. And it's extraordinary how, particularly when you put people together who otherwise would never have met, and so then the mentor demonstrates that belief in, particularly when you're working with young people as mentees, how young people immediately respond to that. They literally rise to the occasion. They suddenly become, their confidence improves. We see that in our programs over and over and over, that their confidence improves at a time, especially with teenagers, when their confidence is usually on the wane. So that's the wonderful thing about mentoring, that you come into a person's life, you have this wonderfully positive impact on their lives. And as Denise said, that might be the thing that you do. And it might be that one thing that might happen only once. And then you don't have to be friends. You might be later on. And often we were talking earlier about how you hear very famous and very successful people often talk about they might win an award. They get up and they say, I'd really like to thank my mentor.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's I don't know if I'm allowed to say, CommBank's running a great campaign at the moment where they talk about Jamie Oliver had a mentor and Kylie had a mentor, and it's good to remember that even incredibly successful people all started with that break. You had a mentor, Steve.
Yeah, I did, and since in radio and things, same thing.
As you move through your career, I think you find other opportunities because they come in at times of need. People might want to change careers. We've had so many callers on this show saying, I'm in this particular role at the moment. I want to switch careers. I want to find something new for myself. Wouldn't it be fabulous if they had a mentor as well?
It can also work in that somebody you meet in business who's your superior values the work that you do. They move to another company, and the first thing they do is ring you up and say, I'll give you more money, come with me. Because they work so well with you. I mean, the fact that working relationships form.
And that's where a mentor plays a role as well, is introducing you to their networks. And the value of networking, we know, is something that just helps you catapult your career even more forward.
28 past 9 o'clock. Going to take a break, come back. I want to talk about, I've got two daughters, one 16 and one 18, about to go off into university and the workforce. How important it is, that connection between school and work. We'll be back after the break.
You're listening to the Courses and Career Show with Danny Bielik, thanks to Management Consultancy International. Go to mci.edu.au.
Denise Meyerson from MCI is in the studio, as is the Chief Executive of the Australian Business and Community Network, Jacqui Jones. Audience 131873, have you ever relied on a mentor in your life? If you're out there driving around tonight and you can say, I appreciate exactly what they're talking about there. I had a mentor, and if it hadn't been for that person, male, female, boss, colleague, I would have got nowhere. Give us a call on 131873 and let us know. So practically, how does MCI and your group work together? In what ways?
MCI is a member of the network, and so we have corporate members, and so that what they do is they fund us, which is wonderful, and they also provide us with the mentors for our programs. So we talk to Denise and Danny at MCI, and and we recruit their people to be mentors to the students that we work with in the schools.
And in fact, yesterday I played the role of being a mentor, Steve. We had I played the role of being a mentor.
Well, you'd be a great mentor.
Well, I'd certainly tried with about 50 girls. It was our Influence Her program, and we were trying to transition the girls and let them think a little bit more broadly about what it would be like in the world of business and what they would need to do to step up to move from the school environment into the world of work.
Do you give it to them straight? Is there some pretty straight advice? I mean,
it was straight.
Or do you fairy floss it for them?
No, it was not fairy floss at all. It was body language. It was power poses.
Were they surprised?
I think they were a little startled. They got into the swing of things, and, initially a few of them were saying so quietly, I'm assertive. I was like, well, if you're assertive, say you're assertive.
I don't think you have any problem with that, Denise, do you?
Sometimes.
So, I mean, obviously, every young person's different, and there's people who are confident. There's some who are not. Do they realise though that to move forward, they actually have to sell themselves?
They certainly got to understand that yesterday. They got to stand up and pitch themselves to some of the more senior mentors from the fabulous organizations who came into the room. They learned from people from women from the Department of Defense in terms of how you even stand when you present yourself. So for them, I think it was quite a steep learning curve, and it was a real privilege to be able to impart this knowledge.
Most of the politicians that I know well have all had mentors who either held the seat before them or they've met in the party, and I think politically that's probably a really important thing. I mean, because the political history gets handed down as well. So mentoring also is about the issue of knowing the history of the company or the party or the sporting organisation, and unless you have a mentor, to use that word, that history gets lost, doesn't it?
That's right. And I think that's where a mentoring relationship's really important, because there's the official history, particularly when it comes to politics, and then there's the actual history. And that's what you're talking about for politicians. So they get the real history, and that's the conversations that you have where you can ask the questions that you really want to ask, that are the off-the-record questions about how do I negotiate this situation? How do I get that first break? How do I approach that person with a really difficult problem and get a successful outcome for myself? And I think that's the core of mentoring. And you know that your mentor always wants you to succeed. And that's a really important part of the relationship.
You will extract some more mentoring stories out of me. When I first came to Sydney in 2002, a senior executive of a very large multinational company was the second person to ring me when I got here and said, I want to meet you at a hotel in the city, and I want to tell you where all the bodies in the city are buried. Which was his way of saying, I'm going to teach you who to like and who not to like. Right?
Good advice.
Oh, it was very good advice. Yeah. And we sat for 2 hours, and the people that he talked about and his assessment of them was pretty much largely absolutely correct.
Yeah, and invaluable.
Trust these people, don't trust these people. These people will help you, these people won't. Yeah. And as you know, Sydney and Melbourne are two very different places.
Yes.
Sydney's a much tougher business town than I think Melbourne is.
Yes.
Melbourne's much more of a mentoring collegiate town. Sydney, you either survive or you get cast aside. So that having that innate knowledge was very helpful.
It's incredible, because that is the one key secret ingredient that can just drive you forward.
I wish I could tell you his name, but I'm not going to. So how often does a mentor seek out someone else unprompted?
As in a mentor seek a mentee?
Yeah. Does it happen very often?
It's not.
I think it does. It happens. I won't say it happens frequently. And I've played many roles myself as mentors with up and coming. You see somebody who's got the talent, a little bit of spark, and you start to mentor them, whether they ask for it or not. I just step into the role in a proactive way, give somebody a break.
And the mentor always gets tremendous feeling of success and
huge
goodwill satisfaction
out
of seeing the person that they've helped along succeed.
Oh gosh, when you take somebody you've nurtured all the way along and you see them really thriving on it and making those huge strides forwards, that's just the reward that you want.
So back in South Africa, your mentor was?
Many mentors. I've had many. In fact, the one that recently passed away, and a school teacher who just opened my eyes and said, wow, what is possible if you open the doors of learning? Just what you will find on the other side.
Jacqui?
Yeah, my first mentor was a teacher, definitely. Just opened my imagination, I think, about what was possible and how you could think differently and how you could ask different questions about the world.
That's that confidence thing.
Yes, exactly. And that you could articulate those questions, and that it didn't matter if there was an answer or not, but it was interesting to explore those ideas.
Well, it's a fascinating topic, and anyone who wants to get involved with the Australian Business Community Network, what do they need to do?
Give me a call, but also they can look up abcn.com.au.
And MCI, of course, anyone who's interested in the mentoring business.
Call us. We even train mentors. So people who want to step into the
mentoring
role for me.
course.
There's a mentoring course.
That's right.
There is.
Thank you very much. Thanks
Thank
for coming
you.
in, girls.
Thanks so
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
20 to
Thanks
10.
you.